The rain fell hard on the busy streets of downtown. Sarah Miller checked her watch and started to run. Today was important, maybe the most important day of her career. The interview at Davis & Johnson Marketing Agency was in 45 minutes, and she was already running late. Not today, Sarah whispered as the first drops of rain hit her face. She looked up at the dark clouds that had appeared from nowhere. The weather forecast had promised sunshine all day. The rain quickly turned from a light sprinkle to a heavy downpour. Sarah had no umbrella, no raincoat, nothing to protect herself from the sudden storm. Her carefully chosen outfit, a navy blue blazer and matching skirt that had cost almost a week's salary, was getting soaked. Worse still, her portfolio containing all of her work samples was starting to get wet despite her efforts to shield it with her body. People rushed past her, most prepared with umbrellas or ducking into taxis. Sarah couldn't afford a taxi today. She had spent her last extra money on printing her portfolio with high-quality paper and a professional binding. The bus would have to do. By the time she reached the train station, Sarah was completely drenched. Her hair, which she had spent 30 minutes straightening that morning, now hung in wet curls around her face. Her makeup was surely ruined. She could feel her mascara running down her cheeks. Sarah stood on platform 7, shivering. The station's overhead cover provided some relief, but the damage was done. She tried to dry her portfolio with the sleeve of her blazer, but her sleeve was too wet to help. The beautiful, expensive paper inside was warping from the moisture that had seeped through the cover. This can't be happening, Sarah thought as she flipped through the pages. Her fingers left wet marks on her carefully designed advertisements and marketing campaigns. 6 years of work experience, reduced to soggy paper. The interview was in 30 minutes, and she looked like she had gone swimming in her clothes. Other passengers waiting on platform 7 kept their distance from the soaking wet woman. A few gave her pitying glances before returning to their phones. Sarah felt completely alone despite being surrounded by people. The announcement board showed her train would arrive in 7 minutes. Then she would have a 20-minute ride to the office district, followed by a 5-minute walk to the agency. There was no time to fix her appearance or dry her clothes. She would have to walk into the interview looking like this. Sarah checked her phone, considering calling to reschedule, but this opportunity was too important. Davis & Johnson rarely had openings, and they were known for paying their marketing staff well above the industry average. With her rent increasing next month and her student loan still not paid off, Sarah needed this job. A gust of wind blew across the platform, making Sarah shiver more. The rain continued to pour around the station, the sound of it hitting the roof almost deafening. Sarah closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Maybe this was a sign that today wasn't her day. Maybe she should just go home. Just then, Sarah felt something strange. The rain had stopped hitting her, but she could still hear it falling all around. She opened her eyes and looked up to see a large black umbrella above her head, and beside her stood a man in blue hospital scrubs with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Sarah looked up at the stranger holding the umbrella over her head. He was tall with tired eyes but a warm smile. His blue scrubs were slightly wrinkled, and a hospital ID badge hung from his pocket. "You look like you could use this more than I do," the man said, his voice gentle. He had dark hair with touches of gray at the temples and looked to be in his mid-30s. Sarah hesitated. Her mother had always warned her about talking to strangers, but there was something trustworthy about this man's face. Thank you," Sarah finally managed to say. "Won't you get wet?" The man smiled wider. "I'm Michael, and don't worry about me. I only live 3 blocks from here. Besides, it looks like you're headed somewhere important." He nodded toward her portfolio. Sarah introduced herself and explained about her interview. "It's in less than 30 minutes, and I look like I went swimming in the river." Michael held the umbrella closer to her. "Well, at least your portfolio can stay dry for the rest of your journey." The station speakers announced that the next train was approaching platform 7. It was Sarah's train. "That's mine," she said, feeling a strange reluctance to end this brief meeting. "Take the umbrella," Michael insisted, pressing the handle into her hand. "Really, I insist." "But how will I return it to you?" Sarah asked. Michael shrugged. "Maybe fate will bring us together again, or maybe you can just help someone else someday when they need it." The train pulled into the station with a screech of brakes. Doors opened and people began moving around them. "I should tell you where to find me," Michael began, but the crowd pushed between them as passengers exited the train. "Thank you," Sarah called out, clutching the umbrella as she was swept toward the train by the moving crowd. From the train window, Sarah caught one last glimpse of Michael. He was already getting soaked by the rain, but he waved at her with a smile before turning to leave the platform. As the train pulled away, Sarah examined the umbrella. It was a good quality black umbrella with a wooden handle. Nothing fancy, but sturdy and reliable, like its owner seemed to be. For the first time since the rain had started, Sarah felt a bit of hope return. She opened her portfolio again and was relieved to find that while some pages were damp around the edges, most of her work was still presentable. The train moved through the city as the rain continued to fall. Sarah watched buildings and streets pass by, thinking about the kind stranger who had helped her. People weren't supposed to be that nice these days, especially in the city. Most people on that platform had simply ignored her situation. Sarah pulled out her compact mirror and tried to fix her appearance as best she could. Her makeup was indeed smudged, and her hair was a mess, but thanks to Michael, she wouldn't arrive completely drenched. And somehow, his kindness had given her a boost of confidence. When the train stopped at her station, Sarah stepped out into the rain with the umbrella open above her. The walk to Davis and Johnson would take about 5 minutes. She held her portfolio close to her chest, protected by the umbrella. As she walked, Sarah thought about what Michael had said about helping someone else someday. His small act of kindness had changed her whole morning, maybe even her future if this interview went well. With renewed determination, Sarah walked toward the tall office building where her interview awaited. The umbrella kept her dry, but it was the unexpected kindness behind it that truly sheltered her spirit from the storm. Sarah arrived at the Davis and Johnson building with 10 minutes to spare. A modern glass tower reflected the gray sky, making it look like a giant pillar of rain. She closed Michael's umbrella and shook off the water before stepping through the revolving doors. The receptionist looked up and her eyes widened slightly at Sarah's appearance. Despite her best efforts, Sarah still looked like someone who had been caught in a rainstorm. Her blazer was damp, her hair was frizzy, and her makeup was far from perfect. "I'm Sarah Miller," she said with as much confidence as she could gather. "I have an interview with Mr. Thompson at 10:30. The receptionist nodded. "5th floor. They're expecting you." She handed Sarah a visitor badge, her eyes lingering on Sarah's wet shoes that squeaked against the marble floor. In the elevator, Sarah caught her reflection in the mirrored wall and winced. She looked worse than she thought. For a moment, she considered turning around and leaving, but then she remembered Michael's kindness. If a stranger could believe in her enough to give her his umbrella, she could believe in herself enough to face this interview. The elevator doors opened to reveal a sleek office space with people in expensive suits walking purposefully in every direction. Sarah clutched the umbrella in one hand and her portfolio in the other as she approached another reception desk. "Sarah Miller for Mr. Thompson," she said. The woman behind the desk smiled professionally. "He'll be with you shortly. Would you like some coffee while you wait? Or perhaps a towel?" she added with a hint of sympathy. Sarah's cheeks burned with embarrassment. "No, thank you, I'm fine." 5 minutes later, a door opened and a tall man with silver hair and a sharp suit appeared. "Miss Miller?" he called, then paused when he saw her. His eyebrows rose slightly. Sarah stood up and extended her hand. "Mr. Thompson, thank you for seeing me today. I apologize for my appearance. The rain caught me by surprise." To her relief, Mr. Thompson smiled and shook her hand firmly. "We've all been there. Come in." The interview room had floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased the city skyline. 3 other people sat at a long table, all looking crisp and dry. "This is our creative team," Mr. Thompson explained, introducing each person. "They'll be asking you some questions as well." Sarah placed her portfolio on the table and opened it carefully. "Before we begin, I should mention that some pages might be slightly water damaged. I did my best to protect it from the rain." One of the women, introduced as Lisa Chen, the creative director, leaned forward. "Actually, I'm curious. Tell us how you handled this morning's unexpected challenge. It might tell us more about you than your portfolio." Sarah hesitated, then decided honesty was best. She told them about rushing to the station, getting caught in the downpour, and feeling defeated on Platform 7. Then she told them about Michael. "A complete stranger gave me his umbrella," she said, holding it up slightly. He didn't ask for anything in return. He just saw someone in need and decided to help. It reminded me that small acts of kindness can make a big difference. The team exchanged glances. Interesting, said Mr. Thompson. Our current marketing campaign for Citibank focuses on community connection and everyday heroes. The tagline is Small Actions, Big Impact. Sarah couldn't believe the coincidence. She quickly turned to a page in her portfolio that showed a similar campaign she had worked on for a local credit union. Great minds think alike, Lisa Chen said with a smile. Now, tell us more about your experience with digital marketing strategies. As the interview continued, Sarah felt her confidence growing. The umbrella stood against her chair, a reminder that sometimes help comes from unexpected places. And by the end of the hour, when Mr. Thompson shook her hand again and said they would be in touch soon, Sarah had a feeling that this rainy day might turn out to be one of her luckiest after all. 2 weeks had passed since the rainy day interview. Sarah sat at her new desk at Davis & Johnson, still hardly believing her luck. They had called her the very next day with a job offer, and she had started work the following Monday. Her new office had a view of the city, though not as impressive as the one from the interview room. Still, Sarah felt grateful every time she looked out at the skyline. Her workspace was neat, with a small plant Lisa Chen had given her as a welcome gift. The black umbrella that Michael had given her stood in the corner of her office. Sarah had meant to buy a new one and keep this one safe at home, but something made her bring it to work every day. It reminded her of how her luck had changed. Sarah, do you have those designs ready for the Citibank meeting? Mr. Thompson asked, popping his head into her office. Just finished them, Sarah replied, handing him a folder. I added some notes about social media integration too. Mr. Thompson scanned the work and nodded with approval. Excellent. The client is going to love this. Join us in the conference room in 15 minutes. As he left, Sarah smiled to herself. Her ideas were being well received, and her colleagues seemed to respect her input despite her being new. The morning of the interview felt like a distant memory now, though it had only been 14 days ago. During her lunch break, Sarah took a walk outside. The weather was beautiful today, with clear skies and warm sunshine. As she passed a newspaper stand, a headline caught her eye. Local hospital faces staff shortages. The photo showed the same hospital logo she had seen on Michael's ID badge. Sarah bought the newspaper and read the article while eating her sandwich on a park bench. The story described how the city's main hospital was struggling with too few staff and too many patients. Several departments were particularly affected, including oncology. Suddenly, Sarah realized she had never properly thanked Michael for his kindness. The umbrella had helped her make a good impression despite her appearance, and that had led to this job that was already changing her life. She had thought about returning to Platform 7 at the same time of day to try to find him, but her new work schedule made that impossible. The hospital, Sarah whispered to herself. I could go there. That afternoon, the Citibank clients loved Sarah's presentation. The whole team went out for celebratory drinks after work, but Sarah politely declined. I have something important to do, she explained to Lisa, who looked disappointed. Next time then, Lisa said. Great work today. Sarah took the bus to the city hospital, carrying Michael's umbrella even though there wasn't a cloud in the sky. The main entrance was busy with people coming and going. At the information desk, an older woman with kind eyes looked up as Sarah approached. How can I help you, dear? She asked. I'm looking for someone who works here, Sarah explained. His name is Michael. He wears blue scrubs. I don't know his last name, but he helped me a couple of weeks ago, and I wanted to thank him. The woman frowned slightly. We have several Michaels on staff. Do you know which department? Sarah shook her head. No, I'm sorry. He was at the train station 2 weeks ago, around 9:45 in the morning. Maybe he had just finished a night shift. That could be Dr. Michael Chen or Michael Okafor from nursing, or possibly Michael Wilson from oncology. They'd often work night shifts, the woman said, checking a schedule on her computer. Is there any way I could leave a note for all three? Sarah asked, pulling out a small notepad from her purse. The woman nodded. I can put it in their mailboxes. But you know, Dr. Chen won't be back for a while. He's on leave. Sarah looked up from her notepad. On leave? Is everything okay? The woman hesitated, then lowered her voice. I probably shouldn't say this, but he's actually a patient here now. Such a shame. He's one of our best doctors. Sarah felt a cold shiver run down her spine despite the warm evening. A patient? What happened to him? I really shouldn't say more, the woman at the desk said, looking uncomfortable. Patient privacy rules, you understand. Sarah nodded, but her mind was racing. Could Michael, the kind stranger who had helped her, be Dr. Chen? And if so, what had happened to him? If it is Dr. Chen who helped me, is there any way I could thank him? Sarah asked carefully. The woman thought for a moment. Well, we do allow cards and well wishes for patients. I could make sure to get something if you'd like to leave it. Sarah quickly wrote a note describing their meeting at the train station and how his kindness had helped her get her new job. She mentioned the black umbrella and thanked him sincerely, leaving her phone number at the bottom of the page. She folded the note and handed it to the woman. I hope this reaches the right Michael, Sarah said, and I hope he's okay. The woman took the note with a sad smile. I'll make sure it gets to all 3 Michaels. One of them is bound to be your umbrella hero. Sarah thanked her and left the hospital, feeling a strange mix of emotions. The joy of her successful presentation earlier that day was now overshadowed by worry for a man she barely knew. 3 days passed with no response to her note. Sarah threw herself into her work, impressing her new colleagues with her dedication. But she couldn't stop thinking about Michael and wondering what had happened to him. On Friday afternoon, as Sarah was preparing to leave the office, her phone rang with an unknown number. Hello, this is Sarah Miller, she answered, trying to sound professional in case it was a client. Sarah? This is Nurse Rodriguez from City Hospital, a woman's voice said. I'm calling on behalf of Dr. Michael Chen. Sarah's heart jumped. Yes? Is he okay? He received your note and asked me to call you. He remembers you and the umbrella. He was wondering if you might have time to visit him this weekend, he said, and I quote, I'd like to see how the interview turned out. Of course, Sarah said without hesitation, I can come tomorrow. Is there anything I should bring? Just yourself, Nurse Rodriguez replied. Visiting hours are from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. He's in the hematology ward, room 412. Sarah spent that night researching hematology. What she found worried her even more. Hematology dealt with blood disorders, including leukemia and other serious conditions. She wondered if this was why Michael had been so willing to stand in the rain that day. Perhaps he already knew he was sick. The next morning, Sarah carefully selected a small plant and a book of short stories to bring to the hospital. She also brought the umbrella, freshly cleaned. She wasn't sure if Michael would need it back, but it felt right to bring it. The hospital corridors were quieter on Saturday. Sarah followed the signs to the hematology ward, her heart beating faster with each step. She had never visited someone in the hospital before, except when her grandmother had hip surgery years ago. She wasn't sure what to expect or what to say. Outside room 412, Sarah paused to take a deep breath. Through the partially open door, she could see someone lying in bed, looking out the window. He was thinner than she remembered, and there was an IV stand beside the bed. Sarah knocked gently on the doorframe. The man turned, and despite the changes in his appearance, she immediately recognized Michael's kind eyes and gentle smile. The girl from Platform 7, he said, his voice weaker but still warm. You found me. Sarah stepped into the room, holding the umbrella like a connection between their 2 worlds. You helped me that day, she said. Now I'd like to help you, if I can. Michael's hospital room was plain, but had a large window that let in plenty of sunlight. The walls were a soft blue, and a few cards stood on the small table beside his bed. He looked thinner than Sarah remembered, and his skin had a paleness that worried her, but his smile remained genuine as he gestured for her to sit in the chair next to his bed. So, did you get the job? Michael asked, his voice quieter than it had been at the train station. Sarah nodded and placed the plant on his bedside table. I did. I start my 3rd week on Monday. Your umbrella saved my portfolio and probably my chance at making a good impression. Michael laughed softly. I doubt it was just the umbrella. You must have impressed them with your skills. Maybe, Sarah said, but showing up completely soaked wouldn't have helped. She hesitated before asking, What happened? Why are you here? Michael looked out the window for a moment. Acute myeloid leukemia. I was diagnosed 3 weeks ago. He turned back to Sarah. Actually, I knew something was wrong for months. I had been feeling tired all the time, getting sick easily. As a doctor, I recognized the signs, but I kept putting off getting tested. The day I met you, Sarah began, was actually the day I had finally gotten my test results confirmed. Michael finished. I had just finished a night shift and had a meeting with my oncologist, cancer doctor, that morning. Sarah felt a lump in her throat. So when you gave me your umbrella, I had just found out I had cancer, Michael said simply. Somehow, helping you felt like the right thing to do. I couldn't control what was happening to me, but I could control that one small act of kindness. Sarah didn't know what to say. The umbrella that had seemed like such a small thing to her had been part of something much bigger for Michael. I'm sorry, she finally said. Michael shook his head. Don't be, it's being treated. I have a good team, my colleagues, actually. Strange to be on this side of healthcare after providing it for so long. Is there anything I can do to help? Sarah asked. She held up the book she had brought. Besides bringing reading material? Michael smiled at the book. That's actually perfect. The days get long here. He paused. But there is something else. The hospital is organizing a blood drive next weekend. We're always short on donations, and with my condition, well, let's just say I have a new appreciation for blood donors. Sarah had never given blood before. The thought of needles made her nervous, but looking at Michael, with IV lines already in his arm, her fear seemed small and selfish. I'll be there, she promised. And I'll bring friends from my new office too. Michael's eyes brightened. That would be amazing. Every donation helps someone like me. They talked for another hour. Michael told Sarah about his work as an oncologist, how he had chosen the field after his father died of cancer when Michael was in college. Sarah told him about her new job and the marketing campaign she was working on. When a nurse came in to check Michael's vital signs, Sarah knew it was time to leave. I almost forgot, she said, holding up the umbrella. I brought this back. Michael shook his head. Keep it. I think it's brought you good luck. It brought me more than luck, Sarah said. It brought me here, to a new friend. As Sarah left the hospital, she felt a mix of sadness and determination. Michael had helped her when he was facing his own crisis. Now it was her turn to help him. The blood drive was just the beginning. She had other ideas forming, ways to support not just Michael, but all the patients like him. The umbrella had connected them on a rainy day. Now, even under clear skies, that connection remained, growing stronger with each step she took. The Davis & Johnson office was buzzing with Monday morning energy when Sarah arrived. She headed straight to Lisa Chen's office, knocking lightly on the open door. Got a minute? Sarah asked. Lisa looked up from her computer and smiled. For my new star employee? Always. What's up? Sarah took a deep breath. I need to ask a favor. There's a blood drive at City Hospital this weekend, and I'm hoping to get some of our team to participate. Lisa raised an eyebrow. A blood drive? That's not usually your thing. What's going on? Sarah hadn't planned to share Michael's story with her colleagues, but something told her honesty was the best approach. She told Lisa about the rainy day, the umbrella, and finding Michael in the hospital. So the mystery umbrella man turned out to be a doctor with leukemia, Sarah concluded. And now he needs blood donors, not just for him but for all the patients there. Lisa's expression had softened. That's quite a story. You know what? This could be more than just a personal favor. The company has been looking for a community service project for this quarter. By lunchtime, Lisa had spoken with Mr. Thompson, and by afternoon, the entire office knew about the blood drive. A sign-up sheet in the break room quickly filled with names. Sarah was amazed by how many people wanted to help. We should make this special, Mr. Thompson suggested during a team meeting. Sarah, work with the marketing team to create some materials for the hospital. Nothing fancy, but something to show Davis & Johnson's support. Sarah spent the next few days designing posters and flyers. She visited Michael twice more that week, bringing him updates on the blood drive plans. Despite his weakening condition, his eyes lit up when she told him how many people had signed up. Your colleagues are coming to donate blood for strangers? Michael asked during her Thursday visit. His voice was weaker than before, and Sarah noticed more machines around his bed. Not strangers, Sarah corrected him. For you, I told them your story. Michael shook his head slightly, but he was smiling. The umbrella story is becoming famous. It's a good story, Sarah said. People connect with it. Everyone has been helped by a stranger at some point. This is their chance to be that stranger for someone else. Saturday morning arrived with perfect weather. Sarah stood outside City Hospital with a welcome table decorated with balloons in Davis and Johnson colors. Lisa and Mr. Thompson were the first to arrive, followed by a steady stream of colleagues. By noon, over 30 people from the company had donated blood. The hospital staff were overwhelmed by the response. Some donors had even brought friends and family members. "This is remarkable," Nurse Rodriguez told Sarah as they watched another group of donors arrive. "We haven't had this kind of turnout for a blood drive in years." Sarah smiled. It just takes one story to inspire people. During a quiet moment, Sarah slipped away to visit Michael. She found him sitting up in bed, looking at the window with more color in his face than she had seen in her previous visits. "The doctor gave me good news this morning," Michael said before Sarah could speak. "My body is responding to treatment better than expected. It's still a long road, but they're optimistic." Sarah felt tears of relief form in her eyes. "That's wonderful." "I hear your blood drive is a huge success," Michael added. Sarah nodded. "People needed a way to help. You gave them that." "No, Sarah, you did that. You took one small moment of kindness and multiplied it many times over." Sarah thought about how differently things might have turned out if it hadn't rained that day, or if Michael had chosen to keep walking past her on platform 7. "I have something for you," she said, reaching into her bag. She pulled out a small, framed photograph of the Davis and Johnson team standing outside the hospital, all wearing t-shirts that read "Small Actions, Big Impact." Michael took the frame with slightly shaking hands. "This is just the beginning, isn't it?" he asked. Sarah nodded. Just the beginning. 6 months had passed since that rainy day on Platform 7. Seasons had changed, summer had faded into autumn, and now winter was approaching. Sarah stood at the window of her new office, watching small snowflakes begin to fall on the city below. Her promotion to senior marketing manager had come as a surprise to everyone except Lisa Chen, who had been quietly mentoring Sarah since her first week. The Small Actions, Big Impact campaign had been expanded beyond Citibank to become the company's signature community initiative. Sarah's phone buzzed with a text message. "Still on for lunch? I'm downstairs." She smiled, grabbed her coat and the familiar black umbrella, and headed for the elevator. In the lobby of the Davis and Johnson building stood Michael, looking very different from the hospital patient she had visited months ago. His hair had grown back, and though still thinner than when they first met, his eyes carried the same kindness that had drawn her to trust him that rainy morning. "Ready for our celebration lunch?" Michael asked as Sarah approached. "Absolutely," she replied. 6 months cancer-free deserves the best meal in town. They walked together to a small restaurant a few blocks away, Michael moving more slowly than before his illness but with steady determination. The hostess led them to a quiet table by the window where they could watch the snow falling. "I have news," Michael said after they ordered. "The hospital approved my proposal. Starting next month, we're launching the Platform 7 initiative." Sarah's eyes widened. "They're really doing it?" Michael nodded. "Thanks to the funding from Davis and Johnson and 3 other companies that joined after hearing about our story. We'll be placing umbrella stands at every major train and bus station in the city. Anyone can take an umbrella when they need it and return it when they're done. And each umbrella will have the information about blood donation and bone marrow registry," Sarah added, already familiar with the plan they had developed together during Michael's recovery. "Plus the tagline you created, 'Someone helped you today. Tomorrow, help someone else,'" Michael said with a smile. Their food arrived, and they ate while discussing the details of the initiative's launch. What had begun as a single act of kindness on a rainy day had grown into something neither of them could have imagined. "The bone marrow registry has increased by 30% since we started our campaign," Michael said. "That means 30% more chances for people like me to find matches." Sarah thought about how close the city had come to losing this good man, how a simple umbrella had connected them and created ripples that continued to spread. After lunch, they walked to Platform A of the neighborhood train station where the first umbrella stand would be installed. It was still under construction, but the sign was already in place. "The Platform 7 initiative. Small Actions, Big impact. It's perfect, Sarah said, feeling a lump in her throat. Michael took her hand as they stood looking at the sign. You know, when I gave you my umbrella that day, I had just received the worst news of my life. I thought I was just passing on a small kindness before my world fell apart. Instead, you created a connection that helped save your life, Sarah said softly. And changed both our lives, Michael added. As they turned to leave, Sarah noticed a woman rushing toward the platform, trying to shield her papers from the falling snow. Without hesitation, Sarah approached her. "Excuse me," she said with a smile, "would you like to borrow my umbrella?" The woman looked surprised but grateful. "Really? But won't you need it?" Sarah handed over the black umbrella, the same one Michael had given her that fateful day. "I'll be fine. Someone helped me once when I needed it most. Now it's your turn." As Sarah and Michael walked away, arm in arm, they didn't see the woman's confused but pleased expression. They didn't need to. They knew from experience that small actions could have the biggest impact, and that kindness, like the rain, could fall on anyone, changing lives one umbrella at a time.